To get straight to the point, I hate this episode. I think it's terrible, and definitely the worst one so far. Things will start out a little slow, but the longer it goes on, the more it will crumble, as this stupidity, incompetence, and hypocrisy will bring down the entire episode, and the mountain of issues will become impossible to ignore. Sounds like we're in for a wonderful adventure. Let's do it! Kanzaki confronts Toma after removing the witnesses from the area and is immediately more cordial than Style was, confirming he did go a little off script. She introduces herself without using her magic name, hoping to end things peacefully, though declaring she's fully prepared to do it if the situation goes south. After informing Toma she's read a report from Style, she proves he is no match for her. There's a bit going on in this moment, so let's break it down. To start with, there's a nice little progression of Toma's right hand. Against Style, it gave him the ability to compete and hold his own. He gained so much confidence he thought it'd be fine as long as he had it. Here though, the reality is setting in that his ability has limits, and he can't just win every fight. There will still be opponents far outside his reach. It's good for Toma to be met with challenges that simply can't be solved with an ability that doesn't take much talent or skill to use. Challenges you hope would force him to change his perspective and alter his approach. I'd love to tell you that this happens quite often, but it doesn't. Kanzaki reading Style's report before confronting Toma demonstrates intelligence. Now, a bit of a shock, but I do like to see intelligence in my stories. Her partner was involved in a fight against an opponent who displayed abilities of an unknown origin, so she read his report to prepare and adapted her strategy accordingly. Kanzaki only needs her sword to use her ability, but she knew the wires were an effective way of increasing her odds against him. She didn't come into this fight overconfident and instead took the necessary precautions to help guarantee her victory. Also, and part of me can't believe I'm saying this, but when Toma doesn't know what to do, blindly charging her fails. A second win moment can be powerful as the strength of the human spirit pushes someone forward, but too many times it shatters logic in the process, and it's fair to say the logic would have struggled with this. With the progression of the right hand and Kanzaki reading Style's report being positives, the other side of this needs to be addressed. The fact is, these are in stark contrast to the rest of the show. Moments like these don't happen much in a certain magical index. Characters' intelligence and adaptability can certainly be questioned when they fight against Toma in his right hand. So enjoy this, cause trust me, just like the positives of the episode, it is fleeting. The final part of this moment to talk about is Kanzaki goes into this wanting Toma to give up before she mentions her magical name. It's a bluff and one that's never going to work for two reasons. One of those isn't her fault, the other one is. The first reason is Toma isn't going to stand down. He's all in, ride or die, literally death by the sword. But even if that wasn't the case, Kanzaki still gives off the strong impression she's bluffing. She warns him like 5 times in 2 minutes about using her magical name, whilst proving how easily she can beat him. These are both clear indicators she isn't really willing to go through with the act. My issue here is how easy it is to read Kanzaki's true intentions. She's never going to fool anyone with this. I mean, say what you will, but Toma notices. He's on my side of this. She comes on way too strong and it gives away her hand. Now this is the dialogue used to convey Toma questioning Kanzaki's intent. And it's bloated. Like really bloated. There's way too much dialogue to convey what is essentially very little information. The bigger concern, however, is some of it doesn't make sense. Toma points out Kanzaki must have a heart since she isn't prepared to kill him when he's in such a defenseless state. He also claims what she is doing to Index is wrong. These are both fine, for now, though his third point is Kanzaki's strong enough to protect whomever or whatever she wants. It's an incredibly bold claim from a guy who found out about magic like 2 days ago. He has no idea what he's talking about. It's not quite as bad as,
"You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up."
but it's still pretty bad. Toma's completely ignorant on the subject. I have no idea how he thinks Kanzaki can solve Index's problem when she uses a sword, and her issues have to do with powerful magic and memory loss. Unless the goal is to stop both permanently, I just can't see this translating well. My second problem with this is, how does Toma even know she's strong? Not only has he had it confirmed to him that there are people higher than her in the chain of command, but from his perspective, she's proven to be stronger than him, which, considering Toma believes himself to be a weak loser, it's an accomplishment he doesn't even hold in high regard. So the only other person she's better than is Style, someone who was defeated by a weak loser. I understand he's stressed right now, but I struggle to buy that as an excuse since he's so sure of himself. There's no indication he's wrong about anything he stated. Yet it should be such a stretch to conclude she must be one of the best there is, able to protect whomever or whatever she wants in this unknown magical society he knows almost nothing about, with a completely ineffective power to help solve the horrible problems confronting her friend. I would like to remind you at this point that Toma manages to save Index with an ability that not only takes no effort to use, but is also perfect for dealing with what the church has done to her. Literally poking the magic seal smashes it entirely, and due to the uniqueness of the Imagine Breaker and the fact its source isn't one of magical origin, John's pen is unable to find a solution to counter it. Kanzaki then gives Toma more information to help fill the gaps in his knowledge, and it begs the question, why does everyone keep telling Toma everything? These are his enemies, yet they spill information like he's a priest at a confessional. I just don't get this. This happens constantly throughout the show. He gets given information for free, information that other characters have to fight and scrap tooth and nail to obtain. Oh, I will get to the sisters arc. And of course him, but not yet. What I will say is doing this doesn't help Toma. He doesn't achieve anything when it happens. It's much easier to be told the answer than to figure it out for yourself. I'm not saying he shouldn't be told anything or that he has to figure out everything on his own, but the scale at the moment is badly tipped in one direction. It just doesn't make sense. Why would his enemies keep telling him everything? Just to be clear, I want the show to stop doing this for Toma's sake. The plot suffers because of it, but it hurts Toma just as much. Anyway, Kanzaki gives him the rundown on Index's perfect memorization, and how Necerius needs to keep erasing her memories every year, otherwise her brain will become overloaded. The erasure is due to take place in 3 days, and once it's done, Index won't remember him, so trying to save her will bring him no benefit. This angers Toma as he's not doing this to be remembered by Index. He's trying to help his friend and is mad at Kanzaki for not telling her the truth to help clear up this misunderstanding. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with Toma. You can make a case they should at least let her know the truth. But I certainly don't buy into this whole it would clear everything up. Index would be an empty vessel and they would be hoping she believes their version of events, which could very easily backfire. She might, for instance, think these people are lying and have kidnapped her. Hypothetically, from Index's POV, she would wake up with no memory and these people would tell her what has happened. After hearing it, she's just as likely to not trust them at all. Another problem is personality is tied to experience. People are constantly changing as they encounter new things and face different challenges. Losing her memory should influence who she is. It's very likely the person before the erasure will not be the same one after. But fine, let's say she's on board with the idea. Well, here's another thing to consider. What if, as the year progresses, she gains happier memories? Meaningful ones that she cherishes more than anything else. The longer this goes on, the more you could easily see her becoming desperate to hold on to those memories. What if she would view losing them as the equivalent of dying? Because, in a sense, they would be destroying who Index is. This version of her, the one who has these happy memories, would be removed from existence and lost forever. Look, to reiterate, my overall problem with this isn't that I think Toma is necessarily wrong, it's that he thinks it will be all you need to do. It's a difficult situation, and claiming it can be tied together with a conversation is pushing the boundaries of believability. Sometimes an honest conversation can actually make things exponentially worse. Toma's statement is way too simplistic. It makes him look very naive, yet the show doesn't challenge him on this. As far as I can tell, the message is clear. Toma is completely right when he says this. Yet I would say the attempted emotional resonance of the scene is crushed when thinking about reality. By the way, just to add to this, look at the line from Toma that I have on the screen. I want you to think about it. Take some time and think about what he just said. To get the ball rolling, I'll throw in the word Alzheimer's. Yeah, I too wonder why I could possibly be frustrated with Toma's naive simplicity. You know, it could work if the show wasn't so supportive of it, but alas, that's not what we're doing. However, to get back on Toma's side, he is correct when he says Style and Kanzaki haven't told her the truth for their own benefit. It's too difficult for them, so they've both tried to justify their actions by convincing themselves they've done it for Index's benefit. For the record, I am far from saying he's wrong about everything. Just most things. Although right or wrong isn't going to save him from Kanzaki, who doesn't take hearing this well. They go back and forth at each other with Toma getting in the last word before collapsing. I'll say it again, the dialogue is way too bloated to convey the information actually being presented. This fight was incredibly dialogue heavy. Speaking of dialogue, there's one part that just simply baffles me. Kanzaki explains to Toma the pain Style felt when he presented himself as an enemy, and the suffering it caused him. And it begs the question, why the hell would Toma care? Are you seriously using how Style feels to appeal to Toma? He tried to murder him multiple times. And Kanzaki's actions have proven killing Toma isn't in the job description, meaning he chose to do this and went out of his way to achieve it. He didn't have to approach Toma in the most I am evil as fuck manner possible. Style had options available to him, but instead he was sinister from the start. He called Index an object, threatened Toma, talked with sadistic enjoyment about the horrible torture other magicians would inflict upon her, kicked Index in the head, and tried to set Toma on fire multiple times. Yet Kanzaki's like, yeah, but he felt bad doing it. And somehow, the show acts like this is a strong, meaningful statement. I don't see why Toma should care about Style's sensibilities. All it's done is leave me stunned at the incompetence of Style and Kanzaki. If these two are specialized, I'm bloody worried about the normies. Looking at another Toma fight raises some of those common questions. How much damage can he take? What are the stakes? In this fight, he gets hit several times, and to be fair, there are some heavy shots amongst them. But against Style, he wasn't even scratched when he fell 7 stories, should have been burnt by fire, and survived an explosion. You can't even include the damage Kanzaki inflicts upon his right hand because, well... Yeah, I have problems with this. At this stage though, I think you can start to mount a case that Toma's damage intake is a bit all over the place. The effect of what happened against Style should have been greater than what Kanzaki did to him. Yet here he loses consciousness, and against Style he's completely unaffected. Now when talking about a scene, I try and save one of my biggest points for last to finish things off with a bang. So let's talk about control of a conversation. Since almost the entirety of the discussion between Kanzaki and Toma focuses on what I would call the secondary issue, that being telling Index the truth about the situation. However, the primary issue is that if they don't erase Index's memories, she will die. And currently, Toma is stopping them from doing this. This is when I pull the rug out and tell you the reason Toma wins this conversation is Kanzaki allows him to control the topic they focus on. Right now, all she has to do is question whether Toma is okay with Index dying if he continues to prevent them from doing their jobs. But she doesn't challenge him on this. And it's such a slam dunk win. Toma doesn't know how to fix the problem. He has no answers, and anything he says to them would literally be him completely guessing. Kanzaki, press him on this issue. Challenge him on the idea that if he continues to stop them, she will die. Now, to be fair, they mention it later, which, by the way, he has no response to, but it's relevant right now. In fact, it's the most relevant part of what's happening. This whole scene is used to facilitate Toma's moral victory over Kanzaki, when in reality it should have been a huge miss and Kanzaki should have been the winner. But the show simply ignored an important piece on the board to have the narrative run the way it wanted. The logic is pushed aside to facilitate emotion, and the quality suffers because of it. Later, Toma wakes up at Kamui's apartment and we get blasted by Stupid. First, it's been 3 days since they fought, so why haven't Style and Kanzaki taken Index away? It would be much easier to complete the job if Toma couldn't interfere. Style should have done it when they were fighting, but I guess he was hanging around watching the whole time, so that's useful of him. If he was doing something else, it must have been very important for him to divert his attention away from the key to all the magic in the world. Second, apparently, Toma ended up back at the house because Kamui found him in the middle of the street and carried him home.
You liar!
If we accept the idea she can carry someone twice her size with her small frame, the next question is how on earth did she do this without anyone seeing? The rune Kanzaki uses should work on her as well, so it has to be removed for her to locate him, and that place is packed with civilians. There's no way she's pulling this off. But okay, even if we forgive those two issues, which we shouldn't, but if we do, then my final question is, how irresponsible is Kamui? Are you telling me she still hasn't told anyone about what's going on? Her student's life is in terrible danger, and it certainly looks like he's way out of his depth. Yet not only does she continue to keep things private, she doesn't ask Toma a single question about any of it. At the very least, she should be here. Now, she does arrive home later, but quickly leaves again to chill out at a bathhouse. Index is upset she didn't know anything about the struggles Toma was facing, that she was left completely in the dark. Upon hearing her concerns, Toma immediately dodges the subject.
なんだよ、このぐるぐる巻きの包帯。
Toma hates it when other characters keep their problems from him. Yet here he does it to Index, and the show either changes tone or the subject matter when he's about to be challenged on it. This doesn't just happen when it comes to his hypocrisy. It happens often when another character has a fair point against him. We just talked about a massive example of this with him and Kanzaki. The wrong subject was focused on. It also happened in episode 3 and will continue to happen in the future. But just as a reminder, in episode 3, Toma was very angry when Index hid the truth about what she was going through. But when Index responds to him with good points, those being he didn't believe her when she tried to tell him and then left her to go to class, the show's tone completely changes.
ざけんなよてめえ。なめたこと言いやがって。とんでもねえ話だったし、聞いた今でも信じられねえ。人を勝手に寝踏みしてんじゃねえぞ。
じゃあ、なんだって学校に行かなきゃとか言ってたの？予定があるからって。
Do you see this? It's framed as more of a joke when Index has control of the conversation. To go back to our current scene, once Toma avoids the subject, it results in Index giving more information about herself, whereas Toma successfully avoids telling her anything about what he faced. This is far away from any sort of exchange, and the reason I really want to hammer this point home is Toma said he is Index's friend. It's the whole reason he is going through all these trials. Well, here's a lesson from a rando on the internet. That's not how close relationships work. You can't expect the other person to give up everything when you're not willing to give up anything in return. Toma throughout the show doesn't talk to the people around him about his own challenges. He doesn't tell them what he's going through, yet dares to lecture them constantly about their similar shortcomings. And all of this comes less than 3 minutes after he was lecturing Kanzaki for not telling Index the truth about the memory erasure. Yet now faced with the same situation, he doesn't tell her anything. He doesn't talk about his fight with Kanzaki. He doesn't say anything about the memory erasure. And he fails to mention how his actions are potentially preventing her survival as he interferes with Style and Kanzaki. And to top it all off, the show never addresses any of this. It supports his decision when the truth of the matter is, he judged her on his own, he didn't have faith in her, and he used his own bullshit logic to justify why he didn't say anything.
Deuces.
Nah, you know what? I'm not done. The fact that this fucking pelican has the audacity to lecture the people around him when he's potentially sacrificing Index's life based purely on his own personal feelings with no idea what he's actually doing. He is utterly clueless, yet blindly forges ahead at the complete disregard of Index's safety. I cannot believe this show thinks Toma is a good person when he selfishly holds Index's life in the balance yet doesn't even have the fucking decency of telling her what he's doing. He hides it behind her back. What a champion. Okay, now I'm done. Once Index explains her unconscious state to Toma and cooks him rice, which ends in a funny, Style and Kanzaki arrive at the house. Now, Kamui, for some reason, seems very casual about these two random strangers turning up after her student was almost killed. She overhears both parties speak to each other, in which hurting Toma is mentioned. Then she watches Index faint, yet still just leaves to go chill out at a bathhouse. You're a bad teacher. Speaking of hurting Toma, Style and Kanzaki just hit the jackpot. Index will go with them and do anything they ask. This is the perfect scenario for them, and I can't wait to see how they take advantage of such a wonderful opportunity.